This video is sponsored by DistroKid, an online music distribution service which allows you as an artist to sell or stream your music through all major online retailers. Hey folks, my name's Lee Townsend and welcome to part 2 of this 4-part video series on how to make music covers on YouTube. This video series is designed for any musician who just wants to up their game a little bit when it comes to audio and video quality on YouTube. If you haven't seen the first part of this video series, you can do that by clicking the card above, where I go over the hardware and software that you're going to need to be able to follow along with this video series. When I left you, we had a basic setup, but we hadn't plugged anything in yet. So I've got my audio interface plugged into my computer via the USB cable. As I said in the first part of this series, I'm using a Line 6 tone port UX8 as my audio interface. And I've also got the mains plugged into the outlet in the wall as well, so it's powered and it's plugged into the computer. Now, before we go over into the audio editing software that I'm going to be using, we're going to just hear from this video's sponsor, DistroKid. DistroKid is a music distribution service which allows you as an artist to sell or stream your music through major online retailers such as Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, Google Play, YouTube Music, Deezer, iHeartRadio and TikTok, just to name a few. When you become a DistroKid artist, you get a number of perks such as an official artist badge on your YouTube channel and a verified Spotify artist profile, along with the ability to sell your single or album in the iTunes store. DistroKid can even sort out the licensing for you to release a cover version of another artist's song. Spotify themselves recommend DistroKid as one of their preferred artist distributors, and the best part is that unlike other distributors, DistroKid don't take a percentage of your royalties. You can pay as little as $19.99 per year to be able to upload unlimited songs and albums for a single artist or band. If you want to be able to release music for more than just your own act, there are other membership tiers available for you to essentially become your own record label. I'll be releasing my debut single next month using DistroKid's service, and they very kindly offered to give you guys, my audience, a 7% discount on your first year's membership. All you have to do to get started is go to distrokid.com/VIP/Tweed Nelson or click the first link in the description below this video. So, to get started with your software, I've opened up Sonar X3 Producer Edition, which is a software that I use. You don't have to use that DAW, you can use any that you want. But I'm going to be using this as that's what I use and that's what I know. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new project here. So we're going to be starting from scratch. And when we click that to create a new project, we can give it a name. We'll call it test and click OK. We're just going to select normal template, which is no tracks in there at all. So click OK. And this is the basic panel that we get. This bit at the bottom here is essentially that's your mixing desk view. And the top is like a timeline view. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is go to Edit and Preferences. As I said, in your digital audio workstation, this might not be exactly where you find preferences. It could be within File or another one of these menu items at the top. So if you just find where it says Preferences and click that. So you want to make sure that your audio device that you've got selected is the interface that you're going to be using. So mine's a little bit more complicated than like the dual channel ones, like the Focusrite Scarlett series. Because it's got so many channels, I've got to have all of these different things selected. The chances are you're not going to need that. So you can go to driver settings here, and you want to make sure that if you go into the ASIO panel here, you want to make sure that your buffer size is as small as it can possibly be. Your window, by the way, might not look exactly the same as this because this window is within the driver of my audio interface. So within driver there, I've got the buffer size set as extra small, and that's because if you use a larger buffer, you can end up with what's known as latency. And what latency is a kind of delay between you inputting the audio and it coming back through to your monitors. So if you're using something like a loop pedal, which as you know I do a lot, you can end up playing out of time with your own loops because the time it takes the signal to get from the guitar into your interface, into the software and back out into your headphones or monitor, there can be a delay there, which can put you a bit out of time. So you want to try and make sure the buffer size is small. And this is another reason why I said in the first video that you should use a half decent computer, because some computers won't be able to cope with having the buffer size so small. So I have my settings, buffer size set at 256 and my bit depth set at 24-bit. And within my inputs and recording, again, this probably won't be a thing for you, but my audio interface has got two inputs which are known as instrument level inputs, and they're in the front panel of the interface. So I have inputs 1 and 2 set to those just for ease of access, because the rest of the inputs are in the back of the interface. The rest I've got set as mic, apart from the last two which I've set as line, and the reason I do that is because I tend to use input 5 for my microphone because of how the phantom power works on this particular interface. I'm not going to go over that because it probably won't apply to you. And your outputs you can set as where you want the output to be. So that's the way where you want the monitoring to be routed through. So if your audio interface has got output 1, for example, you can send your monitor to output 1, so you can send that output in the back of your interface into your monitor speaker in front of you, so you can hear what you're playing while you're recording. So that's pretty much it for that setup. If you've got any other questions, by the way, you can get me in the comments section below this video, or you can get me on Twitter, as always, as I say, at @TweedNelson. So everybody's setup's going to be marginally different, so if you need any help, you can get me there. So I'm going to click OK. I'm going to click Apply because everything's looking good there. And then what I'm going to do is go over here and add a new audio channel or a new audio track. So right click here, insert audio track, and that gives me this track which I'm going to call Guitar 1. I can't actually add a microphone line into this because I'm using my mic to record this video, so I can't use this mic for two things at the same time. So this is going to be called Guitar 1. So I've renamed that in the panel there, and I can add another track as well. I'm going to add that now and call it Guitar 2 just as an example here. So once you've got those tracks set up, as you can see, I've got Guitar 1, and that's this channel here. It's called Guitar 1C. So that's like the mixing desk track, if that makes sense. So what I'm going to need to do now is select the correct input, which means the track in my audio interface that's taking the first guitar channel needs to correspond with this channel within the software. So where it says input there, I go to ASIO Toneport UX8, which is my audio interface, and I select the left of input 1 and 2. The way this interface works is it splits each of the tracks into like stereo tracks, and I can set that up within that panel that we were in before. So the left of input 1 and 2 corresponds with input 1. So select that as Guitar 1, and Guitar 2 is going to be the right of input 1 and 2, which corresponds with the second track within my audio interface. Hope that makes sense. As I said before, if you've got any questions, you can get me below in the comments section. So in order to get any kind of monitoring coming through, i.e. so that you can hear yourself while you're recording, you have to make sure that this input echo is switched on. And what you're also going to want to do is make sure that the record arm button is set to on both of these. So these tracks have gone red. That means that when I hit R on my computer keyboard, it's going to start recording into those two tracks. If one of those tracks, for example, isn't armed, then you can be playing in and thinking that you're recording, but that track won't be recording. Same goes for when you've got another track for your microphone. So typically I have 3 tracks. I'll add that track just so you can see how it normally looks. So I'll have that with Vox written in there for vocals, and then I'll select the input which corresponds with my microphone as well. But obviously, as I said, I can't use this microphone to record this video and to do this at the same time. So if I hit R and everything was plugged in, including the microphone, at this point, the vocals wouldn't be recording because the track isn't armed. So I hope that makes sense. And also, you wouldn't be able to hear it through your headphones. Quite often when I'm recording, I have the input echo on my microphone switched off because I don't necessarily need to hear that coming back through my monitor because I can hear my vocals in the room anyway. So I'm going to do a quick sort of test, like just to show you how it looks when I record something. So I'm going to go grab my guitar. I'm going to plug those 2 cables into the guitar. So I've got cable 1, which goes in the first input and the second input. If you don't know about my setup, I've got 2 jack sockets in my guitar for separate pickups. If you haven't seen my setup video where I go over all that stuff, you can click the card above and I'll send you to that. But you should be able to see now within this software, tracks 1 and 2 within the software are armed. Can you see that there's signal coming through to both of those? So if I hit my bridge, which is guitar 2, is my piezo pickup under the bridge. If I hit there, you can see that channel 2 is picking up a lot more than channel 1 is. If I hit across the strings, you can see that channel 1 is picking up more than channel 2 is. That's just the way I have this set up. And don't forget, I've not added any effects to this yet. I'll add effects afterwards. I always record dry and then add effects afterwards. Also, it's worth noting that I don't necessarily need to add reverb or EQ to my sound because all of that's handled within my pedal board. So I'm going to just, before I hit record, I'll just remind you, when I'm making videos, I disarm the metronome. By default, the metronome is armed during record, but because I'm playing along with myself, I'm not using a metronome. So disarm that and hit R on my keyboard, and you'll see that that starts to record. So I can play a little bit of like, I don't know, thinking out loud into there. And then I can hit the space bar on the keyboard, which will stop the recording. And there you have the 2 tracks. So this one obviously is my piezo pickup. This one corresponds with the sound hole pickup in my guitar. So once you've done this, I'm going to just drag this up a little bit so you can see a bit further up this view. Bear in mind as well, when I'm making my videos, I tend to move this mixing desk section over to my second monitor, so that I can see everything really clearly. But when you're recording only a couple of tracks, it's not really worth it. As you can see, there's enough space on here to be able to see everything. But these sections here are where you can add effects to each of the tracks. So what I could do here is right-click here and add an audio effect. I'll show you in Guitar 1 what I tend to do with the guitar channel. So I'll go down to DirectX. Yours will be different because depending on the plugins you've got and stuff. But pretty much you're looking for any kind of compressor. So I'll add a compressor. What that does is it makes sure that none of the tracks clip. If I accidentally play the guitar too loudly, it'll sort of bring the level down and sort of counteract that boost in volume. So I cheat a bit. I use one of these presets. I call it, go to average low level, which adds quite a bit of gain in it, and it makes this track a lot louder. So I tend to add that and then drag this gain back down to about 2. So you can see there the gain 1.9, okay, 2. And this curve here means that when the input signal reaches this level, it starts to kind of pull it down because it knows it's getting too loud. That's a really basic way of explaining what compression does. So I'm going to get rid of that, and I also add a little bit of EQ. So the same thing again, I'll go to an equalizer. And what I tend to do with my guitar channel, my first guitar channel, is boost these bass channels a little bit and boost these treble channels in that kind of shape. That's very rough. Usually I do that while I'm listening to it so that I can tell what I need, what I need the sound to sound like, if that makes sense. Sometimes there'll be like a nasty frequency where you'll get like a warbling, horrible bass sound, and you can usually find which frequency that is and take it out, for example, so that you get rid of some of that horrible sort of muffled sound. So that's generally how the guitar looks roughly. As I said, there's no reverb there because the reverb's handled within my pedal board usually. So we're going to imagine that guitar 2 is the vocal track, because we haven't got a vocal track there. Go to audio effects, same thing with the compression. This is really, really basic kind of thing, average low level, pull that down. Obviously if your vocal track is too quiet, you can pull that gain up a little bit as well, but I'm going to do the same thing with it for now. Again, with equalization, Usually I do it while I'm listening to it so I can tell how I want it to sound. But typically I'll add a little bit more mid in this sort of range to the vocals. And sometimes I'll boost the bass as well because I like quite a bassy vocal sound. But again, it's all about playing around with it. And there are some presets here that you can work with as well. There probably will be in whatever software you use as well. So you could just have a play around with it till you're happy with the sound. And another thing you can do while you're playing through this, so if I disarm these like so, when I play this back, it'll just come back through the monitors. And if you want to hear just one track on its own so you can tell what parts of the song are coming from that track, you can use the solo section. So if you click solo there, when I play that back, it'll only play that track. So you can hear exactly what's going on in that track and sort of sculpt the sound how you want it. And then you can hit solo again and it'll play everything back into the mix. You can also do a similar thing but opposite. The M stands for mute. So if you've got one track that you want to drop out, you can mute it and play it and it'll just not play that track. Hope that makes sense. So what I'll do as well, usually when I'm working on the vocals, I'll need to add some reverb because the vocal track's going in here dry. So what I tend to do, again, cheating massively, stick a reverb track on there. Preset, I usually just go with a default reverb. And then I'll drag the reverb down because the default reverb tends to be really strong. It sounds like you're in the bottom of a bin. So usually I'll drag this down to sort of minus 19, minus 18 decibels of reverb. And that tends to be okay for my sound. It's, as I say, very, very basic kind of idea going on. And then once I've done that and I'm happy with the overall sound, I can then export this audio. So I do that by going to File, Export, Audio, and I export that as a WAV file, as that's a much, much bigger file size than an MP3, for example, but it's also a much, much better quality file size. I mean, you couldn't send that to somebody. The file size is far too big to like WhatsApp it to somebody, but obviously it's staying in your computer because the next step is going to be the video editing side of things, which is going to be the next part of this video series, part 3. So I'm going to leave that here. Obviously, you could just give that a file name. So I'll call that test, for example, and I'll save it on my desktop, and I'll just export that. And you can see it's mixing down really, really fast because that was a really short audio file. Usually it'll take quite a bit longer than that. I've been working on my debut single within this software, and I've got like 32 tracks going, all with different effects on. And that takes a good 5 minutes to bounce that down into one WAV file. So depending on how many tracks you lay down here, yeah, it can vary in the time it takes to export the audio. So we're going to finish things off here for this section of the video. Hope it's helped in some way. As I said before, please feel free to ask me questions below this video in the comments section, or you can get me on Twitter at @TweedNelson, and I'll get back to you if you've got any kind of questions or things that you need help with. Obviously, I can't go over every single software within this video series because I've not got them all. I don't use them all. But the principle is the same, really, when it comes to doing this. And this is a very, very basic way of recording audio, but it just ups the quality a little bit when it comes to adding things to YouTube. So in the next video, make sure you subscribe to this channel so that you get alerts when I upload the next part of the video. That's going to go over how to edit the video together with the audio and mute the audio within the camera and all that stuff. I'd like to say a big thanks to today's sponsor, DistroKid, for getting in touch and allowing me to sort of offer you that 7% discount as well. Very kind of them. As I said, you can go to distrokid.com/VIP/TweedNelson to take that offer up. It's a really, really good service. I'm using it myself, so yeah, if you'd like to do that, you can go and do that. If you'd like to follow me on Twitter, you can do at @TweedNelson. If you'd like to follow me on any of the social networks, I'm there again at @TweedNelson across the board. Until next time, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.